So for those of you who don't know what I'm a freelance copy editor. So the purpose of this, which was on the first slide, I'm afraid to go back to that. It's so that when you're writing for the web, or you're writing articles, you're writing newsletters or anything to your clients, so that you learn how to write clearly and more succinctly, because that's the best way for people to really grasp your message. So I put together just some tips and tricks to do that. I mean, there's, of course, a whole lot to know about all of this, but for 20 minutes, I just tried to pick up on some easy things that you could do. And the first one is write less. You know, people are really busy. And when they see a whole lot of, like a big article or a whole lot of stuff to read, they just think, oh no, that's an awful lot. So, you know, whatever you write, take out 20% is usually what they say. And then you might have a better idea of what people can function with. Less is actually more effective because they focus on it. And you have to remember that you're writing for a diverse group of people. So you want to include everybody. There could be people in another language or who English is not their first language. So if you use a lot of, for the better lack of a term, you know, better vocabulary and industry terms or things that they might not understand if they aren't in your industry, you're going to be excluding them. So when you're writing, just try and make it clear and be honest, because, you know, really salesy things, people can tell and they're just not interested in it. So, you know, the best way is just clear and honest and try and include people. And this is something that's really hard to understand, and it took me for a while, but you are supposed to write for just one reader. Figure out who your ideal client is and write for that person. Because if you start writing for everybody in case anybody's going to read it, you're actually going to miss who you're trying to target. This is going to be all by click. So you want to write what the reader needs to know, not what you need to tell. Most people write because they just want to keep talking about what they do, and they write about what they know, but they're not really writing about what the reader needs to hear, what the reader needs to read. So don't write for yourself, make sure and write for the reader. And if you talk about them, you know, you as the reader, as opposed to we, our company, we do this, we do that, they're much more likely to stick with it and feel like you're reaching them instead of that you're just talking about your own company. And again, keep it succinct. That grabs attention. If you have a lot of sentences that are all the same length, you know, that just gets boring. So put a couple of short sentences in there that really grab someone's attention. And writing with less friction, and we'll go through some of these, is just taking out a lot of the stuff that trips people up when they're reading. If you find yourself reading a sentence that's really long and you have to reread it, then that has what they call friction. It just has too much commotion in it for somebody to get through it. So we'll go over a couple. And one of the ways is to avoid going into tangents. You know, people do this when they talk. They start on one thing and then they say, but this, and then by the way, and then, you know, and when readers do that, it's hard to keep up. So you don't want to go into those tangents. And if you have to make an outline, just stick to what you really want to talk about. So here was a before tangent. I'll give you a second to read it. This is what I did. This was Rent a Daughter. This is their mission statement.
Ooh.
And there's nothing technically wrong with this, but you can see it says, we want to do this by doing this, to doing this, to doing this. That's what's called the tangent. So what I did in the next one, this is, I deconstructed it. I went into that and thought, what are the points they're trying to make? And I put them into two. So we went from 44 words to 31. And I think we just better captured the, you know, the 2 or 3 things they were trying to say, and by putting it into 2 sentences.
Tina, just a note, that started to happen with these mission statements, I want to say about 15, 20 years ago. Somebody came up with this concept, and I don't know what business writer it was, is you have to have a mission statement, and then they try to tell everybody to make it all-encompassing, and that's how you got to those previous things you're talking about. You're right. By the time you're done reading it, nobody knew what it meant.
Right. You don't know what they do. Exactly.
Right.
Trina?
Yes.
Well, so you suggest like if you're gonna have a mission statement, you want to keep it like around 30 words, maybe 2 sentences, boom. Because I
Yeah,
have to come up with a
you can
mission
talk
statement
about
myself.
what you do after that, but to just provide what you're trying to do should be short and succinct.
Because I have to come up with one myself. I don't have that really yet. So
Oh, well, when you come up with it, I'll look at it for you if you want.
It's somebody phrased it as keep it simple, stupid, and the stupid is
Exactly.
referring to yourself, not to your client.
Kiss it.
So, yeah, right.
keep it
Kiss. It was
simple.
kiss is the way I was taught as a
Yeah.
salesman.
Okay, so then sometimes this happens in sentences too with just going on to tangents. So here's a sentence. It's not too bad, but just read it for a sec. And I mean, that's fine, but I looked at that and just thought, I felt like they were talking more about them, like we did all this for you. So, and I thought it was a little lengthy. So, excuse me. I just put, we promise you that nothing will be overlooked with our acute attention to detail. So sometimes you can rewrite a whole sentence, or sometimes you can just take something out and it just makes it a little easier. But the more friction you remove from the sentence, the easier it is that people will get what you're trying to say, is the point. And there's creative versus business. Now, creative, we all know, usually had a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's how stories go. Or sometimes they go in the beginning and they go back and forth. But business writing is upside down. Because this came from column writing in newspapers. You always put the, start with the most and then go down, down, down. Because if people lose interest or don't have time, you want to make sure you have the less important stuff and at the bottom. Or sometimes there is a call to action at the bottom. People will just skip and say, what do they want me to do? And you can put that at the bottom, but it's best to just try and formulate it like you were if you're reading a newspaper, and put the most important stuff first. And there are a lot of duplicative phrases that people use and they don't realize. And here's one, one after the other. So one after the other actually means succession. So you can just say they arrived in succession. And here we go, they're arriving little by little.
yeah.
And another thing, you hear this all the time, and now that I say this, I'm sorry if it's gonna drive you crazy. You cannot modify unique.
Yes.
Unique means there is no other one like that. So people tend to say very, which is an adverb that they put on top of everything. You actually don't need very, just come up with another word. But people put very in front of everything to say like, no, it's really, really, really this. It's very, very, very. And the whole idea is just, instead of unique, you could say sophisticated, uncommon, it's different.
One I've heard is the most unique.
Yes. And
you're either unique or you're not. It's like you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You're
exactly.
not somewhat pregnant or very
unique
pregnant.
Is like pregnancy. Yes, every baby's different.
Hey, Trina, it's almost. Yeah. What do you? I've always heard this too. When I'm writing something, why am I putting I feel this, I feel that? These are my thoughts. So why are you writing I feel?
Right. Yeah. Just
the same thing, down. Kind of.
Well, yeah. One of my pet peeves, what you're saying, Ray, is when people in conversation and say, personally, I feel. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you feel it personally because nobody else can feel it for you. People use the word personally way too often.
And literally.
Literally is another one. That's a running joke between me and a buddy of mine when we hear in Boy Scouts, a lot of these kids, they haven't learned this stuff yet. And they'll go, literally.
Yeah, the only time so for everyone's knowledge, the only time you say literally is if there's been another expression, like if you say, oh, I fell off a cliff, or, I jumped so high. No, if it's an expression that you want to say, no, I literally did that, but you don't have to put literally as a modifier to something to say like, I literally arrived 3 minutes ago. Well, if you're going to say you arrived 3 minutes ago, you don't have to say literally. So yeah, people do overuse that a lot. And there are 2 words that come up all the time, and I hope this doesn't drive you crazy also, but they're called false subjects because you don't know what it is you're referring to when you say there. And we do it all the time. I could say, there are many people who attend this, virtual Zoom meeting, or, there are lots of places to shop, and And that's okay because people speak like that, but when you write, just keep remembering the object is take out as many words as you don't need. Just filter it. So you could say there are many restaurants that serve takeout now, but you don't need there are. Just many restaurants serve takeout now.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's what they call a false subject. And another one is the word it. If you say it's difficult to convert recipes from gram to cups, well, that may be true, but says who? Who says it's difficult? So you have to still find a subject. People find it difficult to convert grams to cups. So see what I'm saying about these words? Those are just some things you can do to kind of clean up your writing a little bit. And there are a lot of unnecessary words. Now here's 5 words that you can just say. People do it, and I know attorneys do this, Harry. It's okay. You guys use extra words due to the fact that you can just say because. If you're trying to keep your reader in mind, this is for when you're writing things for your readers and your people, or blogs, web content, ads, things like that. Yeah. You never really need to say in order. Right. And then the word follows to do this in order to facilitate our meeting. To facilitate our meeting. You can almost always get rid of in order. And we made the decision to. Well, you can just say we decided. See, it's just a way to keep cleaning it up. And that's the whole point of this type of editing, is to just clean it up for your reader.
Trina, how often, whether it's a post or how often do you go back and re-edit? I mean, is there a general rule, or just till you feel, because when I'm writing something, whether it's content or letters, I'll just go back and keep looking. There's a point where it becomes too much editing, I think.
Yes.
I just say, okay, it looks good enough to go and put it out there.
I think Hemingway said, edit until you can't take out any more words, and then you know it's ready to read.
That's what I try to do.
Kind of, yeah. That's
I think sometimes I'm an hour and a half in, I might be overthinking if it's a 2-page letter or a 1-page letter, but as long as it keeps sounding.
I think most people go 2-3 times at least.
Okay.
I mean, the first time for obvious, the second time to really read it, and then the third time and then finally just proof it. So really, like the 4th time, it should be in great content. It should be in great shape.
Okay.
And another thing, this is back to grammar school, but people have to remember, when there's a singular subject, you need a singular verb and a singular pronoun, and I'll show you that in a second. So when there are more people, obviously plural, you need a plural subject, a plural verb, and a plural pronoun. And here's an example. My client loves their new couch. Client is singular. There is plural. So this is actually incorrect. And we know we do it all the time. But the client could be one person, or the client could be 2 people. So what you want to do, my clients love, is if it's more than one person, you say clients. Or if it's one person, my client loves his, or my client loves her. And here's a little clue. This is the best clue I ever learned, like way back in college. An S on a verb is always singular. So that's how you know to keep your subject and your verb equal. And you'll see it in all words. But usually, I mean, most verbs that have an S on them, and not all verbs can end in S, but an S on a verb is always singular. And then sometimes you have double negatives. And remember that people think about negatives more than they think about positive. You know, your bad dreams, your bad experiences in life, those stick with you. And so when you do that in your writing, it's not that I don't want to do it, I'm just not sure. Right there are 3 negative things. And you kind of read it and you think, okay, they may, do they want to do it? If you have to look at it. So you could say, I may want to do it, I'm not sure. Instead of don't, not, and don't, that's 2 negatives. 2 negatives make a positive. So it's just an easier way to say that. And people don't like to read things that have a negative connotation. And one of the biggest ones, I've read all about, there are many reasons why the brain remembers negative things more than positive. But that saying, don't drink and drive, remember that? Because it has the word don't drink and drive, well, anytime you tell your kids don't do this or don't do that, they want to do it. So that don't in front of it, they actually changed their saying to stay alive, don't drink and drive, because it wasn't reducing, and they realized that it was just kind of worded incorrectly and it wasn't very positive. Now we all know you cannot adjust your spelling in your gram checker. Or at least you should know that because there are so many words that it's going to overlook. Homonyms are the biggest one that they just completely overlook. And you'll pass, and then before you know it, so you have to read carefully. I use it as a first pass to get out any typos or something that's really obvious. And then you have to read, because you could make a typo and put farm and you meant warm. And both of those, of course, are going to show up. Or sometimes if you're dictating, we're all dictating now into our phones and our computers, it may pick up grandma as grammar. You just don't know, and if you don't look. So the point of spelling checking is just as a first pass, you absolutely have to read carefully. And its and its is a very popular one. And I'm going to show that again, just because people get confused on that. But here's why you need commas. Like, commas have a reason to be in a sentence. You can't just stick them anywhere. And a lot of people do. They put a comma because they think they need to take a pause. But see what happened here when you didn't put the comma? So they actually help guide the reader through the content. If you have the commas in the proper place, not just a pause, it really helps them flow through your sentences and your paragraphs to get the real meaning out of it. It can change the meaning of sentences if you don't have them, like over here. And if you don't know how to do it, you can hire me. But when we had one of my grammar punctuation classes, we had to actually circle every comma, and then this is long ago, we had to write the rule for the comma in the column next to it. So I didn't get away with just sticking commas anywhere. So have you guys heard of the Oxford comma?
I don't think I have.
Yeah,
I use it. I was taught that in school.
Well, so do I. And there was just a recent court case out of Massachusetts because there was a contract written.
Yep.
I think it had to do with truck drivers and dairy delivery.
I remember that.
And it was the scale, how they were getting paid on a certain item, and the court ruled, I believe, in favor of the Oxford comma.
Yeah. Well,
it's wild. I mean, they ruled in favor of the party that made use of the Oxford comma as the way we were taught in school. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it can. Well, it can, and with legal, it can really change the meaning of the sentence.
I mean, it ended up being a multi-million-dollar case. Right.
Now here's this actually, the next thing I'm going to show you actually appeared in a paper long ago. So this is at least 4 people, because the strippers is plural, so that's at least 2. This is at least 4 people. You've got the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. But if you don't so here's the Oxford comma right here, the last one before the series. If you don't use it, look what happens. The strippers are JFK and Stalin.
Right.
So.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Right. Yeah, right.
Wow.
That's a parenthetical comma.
Wow, I'm learning. That's pretty cool.
Games for strippers.
Yeah, now if you're saying like I love toast, jelly, and peanuts, people know that those are 3 different things. But a lot of times, like Harry was saying, in certain instances, you really can't tell. So you have to make sure you know how to use that comma.
Trina, have you read the book Panda Eats, Shoots, and Leaves?
No, I've heard of it.
It's where you put the comma, because if you say panda, comma, eats, shoots, and leaves.
Oh, right.
He eats, shoots, and leaves. But the other way it could be read as the panda eats, walks into wherever he's walking in, shoots, and leaves.
Right. So, exactly.
I mean, so it's
that's why it's important.
So the whole book is about a lot of what you're talking about, how to use the commas and
yeah, you have to pay attention to little things, and if for no other reason than grammatically correct, just to help your reader go through the reading more easily. And that's the whole point of all of this, so they don't get caught up in anything. And I know this is silly, but I can't tell you how many people. I'm going to give you a little mnemonic device, but I see it on like the nightly news and graphics from the top, organizations in the world. You'll see this mistake where people still get confused. So It's obviously means it is. It's a contraction. But the way that you remember it, I have a woman who has a PhD, and this is one of her biggest hangups. And she thinks now she's so hung up on it, she can't, it's like a block in her head. Now she gets stuck on it every time when it's so easy. But if it's not a contraction, it is always, always, always the other one. That's the only way you have to remember it. If you can't substitute it is. The other one's a pronoun, and people say, well, how do I know? But it doesn't really matter. If you can't put it is in there, just put the other one. That's the easiest way to remember that. So whether it's a pronoun. So I made a little fun exercise for you guys for the end. I'm going to let you read it and just figure out how many mistakes you see.
You got to go back to full screen.
Just call out when you're ready.
I'd say run with it the way it is.
Well, you can slim it down some.
Well, we're not rewriting this one. We're just looking for errors. This is just to find error. This is a proofreading test.
Well, the name, Donlin and Doolin.
Wait, don't say out loud because in case other people.
Sorry.
How many do most people come up with?
We're looking for mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Somebody gave us one. And that's a good catch, whoever said that. A lot of people will skip
I see
right.
one in the first sentence at the end of it.
All right, I'll just show you.
thank you.
4, right?
Okay.
That's the one I saw. 4.
You spell out numbers up to 10. 0
Right.
through 10 are spelled out. And the Cleveland Orchestra,
Right.
it's like the Washington Post, or then you say the Post, you only put the Post. Like the LA Times, I think it's just LA Times.
Oh, so the actual title of the orchestra is the
Yes.
Cleveland Orchestra.
Whenever
Okay.
you put the name of a
The Ohio State
company,
University.
you have
The
to
Ohio
find,
State. That's right. It's
yeah,
the
you
Ohio
have to
State
make sure
University.
whenever you're talking about an organization to find out the full name and what is capitalized. And accommodate was misspelled. Donlin and
one.
said Doolin.
I
And
call it
then-
the dash, the 2-story, the dash.
Yeah, that's and then so that's it's not a 2-house or a story house. Whenever you have 2 adjectives,
Oh, okay.
modify
it's a
one thing.
Modified. I gotcha.
And the uncle, it's just Uncle John and Aunt Sue's. Whenever you 2 possessive, you only put the possession on the last name.
Ooh.
So that's just a fun little, it just goes to show you, okay, now I can escape, right?
I thought maybe the first sentence I should have just said he started playing piano at age 4. Boom. That's too many words. I wouldn't have written it that way.
You can say age 4.
I said at age 4, but
Click to
like really cool.
end slideshow. Okay, let me quit PowerPoint. Are you guys back?
Yep.
There we are.
We're back.
Okay.
That was great.
Oh,
Yeah, that
okay.
is good.
It
Very
was.
good. Enjoyed that.
I mean, there's so much, but I mean, I just tried to put some common things to get you thinking about.
Trina, will you send that out? A link to that presentation or
Yeah.
a PDF of it? Either way.
Jeff,
Tom recorded it.
if it's too, oh yeah, he recorded. If it's
Well, the
too
PowerPoint
big,
itself. That's all. I mean, I was talking about the PowerPoint.
yeah. If it'll email, if it's too big, I don't know how I can email it.
Actually, I put together a useful tool for you guys to take in after the meeting. Cliff notes of everything that
Oh, cool.
that you discussed, Trina, and
Uh-huh.
I'm going to export it from notes as a PDF. It's basically screenshots of the slideshow. May I share
Oh, that's great.
it to you?
Because the only
Thanks,
way I
Isaac.
know how to send it is through Hightail. My husband uses that for huge audio files.
Right.
But you're right. I should have put at age 4. You don't have to say age of 4. Thank you, Harry.
You know, Trina, when you do your presentation, you never said, you know what I
Oh.
mean. Fantastic. So I was wondering if you do the speech coaching as well, because that is
No, I
that can be
just,
very, very annoying when somebody's talking. Who's the governor that
oh,
the
I
lab
know
coat?
Dr. Acton. Bless
I know
her
they're not
heart.
they're not made for the camera. There wasn't one
Yeah.
time you did any of that, and that's fantastic. I'm working on a little bit of that myself still.
Oh,
But I
thank you. I
noticed
know I
you were
love
like,
Dr. Acton, but she can't stop saying, I know. It's really
oh my
annoying.
goodness, but you did phenomenal. Not once you said, and that's very hard to do.
Oh, thank you. That was my first presentation ever. I'm sorry it got recorded.
Wow, it didn't seem like it.
Well, I just thought I'd put the slides together and just talk through it, how I would see it or how I would explain it.
It was very good.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
it's incredible how you make us think of things I never think of. I just put things down the way it sounds right.
Right.
I mean, I do, voiceover and things like that. And if I get to a paragraph that the company doesn't know what they want to say, I'll just write something that sounds right. It's probably all wrong.
Well, that's what the point of my first slide was. People usually write for themselves. They don't write for the reader. So they put down what they want to talk about. But if you're reading, and we're all readers, you get caught up on a lot of stuff. It's too long. You don't understand what they said. You have to reread it. And that's the whole point of editing, for clarity and conciseness.
And we all know talk to text is very dangerous. You always have to review your text messages before you click send.
Oh, I know.
Always.
There's some really hilarious and sexually explicit things that can come out that you don't want to.
And make sure who you're sending it to.
Right.
You're not sending it to everyone.
You know, it was interesting because this goes way back about writing an email. They said write it in reverse order. First put your attachment on the email, then write the email, then write the subject of the email, then you click who you're sending it to, and you're going to avoid a lot of mistakes that way.
Right. Well,
because you're reading the email itself first, and there's no chance of, so many people are so used to putting the recipient first, who it's going to, and then throwing in the subject, then typing out the email, and if it's not been proofread and you hit the wrong button or whatever it is, you forget your attachment. Yeah, so it was a really good
Trina,
concept.
you can make a really bad impression. I know it makes it on me when I see a lot of grammatical errors you're doing business with somebody and there's a lot of errors. It really makes you look unprofessional.
Right. That's the point, is this should be an extension of how well you feel you do your job and your professionalism that you represent. And that should carry through everything you do, your branding, your writing, how you present yourself. That's all a part of you as a brand. So, if you have things that you're not sure of, it's best to just have an editor go over it, especially if it's something that's going to be published, just like sent out to everybody, a long post or an article on LinkedIn or something like that. Have somebody else look at it, somebody who knows what they're doing, because, it could probably be improved. So that's all.
One last thing, my ex-wife published, Kathy, her, Jeff, she published a children's book last year, edited it, everything. I don't know, she must have sold at least a few hundred of these books so far. Finally, somebody caught an error on the back of the book, missing like A-N-D. I can't remember the conjunction or whatever that was.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my goodness. And she's got to go back, but it's amazing. Nobody saw it out of hundreds of people looking at the book. Isn't that crazy?
I did 4 children's books, and 2 of them had been printed before. And then I went through, and like you said, I think 5 people had looked at it. But also the point of an editor is you're too close to your content. Like Harry said, if he has a letter that he's writing for a long time, you get so used to it. When you start reading, your brain begins to start skipping over parts of it, and you actually just don't even see it because your brain finishes the sentence for you, and you're actually not reading anymore, which is why I called it fresh eyes, because you really should have fresh eyes on things like that.
They sure are. It was an excellent presentation, Trina.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so
Yeah.
much, Trina.
Thank you.
Very eye-opening.